congregation. I'll be serving as your worship leader today. Reverend Thomas Perchlet is out of the pulpit. Helping me is my daughter, Amanda Manger. When my husband Paul and I moved to San Diego 3 years ago, we built a second story on Amanda and her husband Jeremy's house. So we have the amazing privilege right now of sheltering in place with our daughter, son-in-law, and 2 grandchildren. And that's what allows Amanda and I to be working together today. Our welcome is found in Psalm 133. How rare it is, how lovely, this fellowship of those who meet together. It is good to be together, even virtually, in this time of stress in our world, maybe especially good. We're so glad you're here. Sadly, we will not be able to see each other or interact today. Reverend Thomas is hoping to have those functions available by the Easter service. We're also not sure about how much music we'll have. We're hoping that Chris will join us. Neither Amanda nor I is a musician. Amanda stopped taking harp lessons in high school when she started focusing on soccer. So today, hopefully with Chris joining us, but in any case, let's visualize each other together with Katie, Chris, and the choir and the band joining us as we share this service.
The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Dieguito is an inclusive community that encourages free thinking and compassionate living. We gather together to consider the most significant issues of life and to make manifest in this world the beloved community of souls. As Reverend Thomas said last week, we are not a place so much as a community with shared values and covenants. We welcome and affirm people of all ages, abilities, races, ethnicities, gender identities, sexual orientations, and family structures. If you are visiting today, we're so glad you are here and hope you will enjoy your time with us. Please come back when we can be together in person so we can get to know each other.
We will be considering children's spirituality today. Spirituality for anyone is hard to define. It has to do with the concern for the human spirit and soul, as opposed to material or physical things. What is spiritual for each of us is different. It has been called the undescribed by Doug Muden, a UU minister, who has said, spirituality is an awareness of the gap between what you can experience and what you describe, what you can describe. Our call to worship comes from Tobin Hart, who has written, children have a deep spiritual life. They have spiritual capacities and experiences, profound moments that shape their lives in enduring ways. These are sometimes stunning, often tender, and reveal a remarkable spiritual world that has often been kept largely secret. From moments of wonder to finding inner wisdom, from asking the big questions about meaning and life, to expressing compassion, and even to seeing beneath the surface of the material world. These experiences serve as touchstones for our life as spiritual beings on earth. We will join together in a unison reading, then light our chalice, a symbol of the light we each carry within us, that is fed and fueled by our sacred time together. You can follow reading on the link that Tracy has attached to this reading, or if you happen to have a hymnal, it is reading number 664. I'll begin, and Amanda will respond with you by reading the italicized words. Give us the spirit of the child. Give us the child who lives within.
The child who trusts, the child who imagines, the child who sings. The child who receives without reservation, the child who gives without judgment. Give us a child's eyes, that we may receive the beauty and freshness of this day, like a sunrise.
Give us a child's ears, that we may hear the music of mythical times.
Give us a child's heart, that we may be filled with wonder and delight.
Give us a child's faith, that we may be cured of our cynicism.
Give us the spirit of the child, who is not afraid to need, who is not afraid to love.
Now I invite you to rise in body or in spirit to sing together our gathering hymn, number 347, Gather the Spirit.
join us in reading the Fellowship Covenant. May love be the spirit of this congregation. May the quest for truth be its sacrament, and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek the knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our covenant. Now is the time when we mark a personal joy or sorrow that is in your heart this morning. Since we are not together, I urge you to acknowledge aloud, wherever you are, any sorrow that weighs on your heart or any joy that brightened your life. For all sorrows, spoken or unspoken, I take a stone from this basket and put it in the bowl of water. And we can certainly include there all the sorrows we're all experiencing about what is going on in the world with the coronavirus and what is still to come. For any joy in your heart, including the joys of life going on in the midst of this pandemic, we'll take a little water and put it in the bowl of water, symbolizing our releasing our joys and sorrows into the flow of life. To offer comfort and to affirm the spirit of togetherness, please join in the sung response. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, O my soul, which we will repeat twice. We can imagine our fellow congregants singing with us. The story for all ages will be read by Amanda, but you can visualize Allison calling the children forward and sitting down in front of the pulpit. And you can call your children in now if they haven't been listening so far. The story is called Off to the Duck Pond and is one of the series of Martin and Judy stories used in Unitarian religious education programs more than 60 years ago. Some of you may remember them. They are based on the premise that children's spirituality grows out of their everyday experiences.
Off to the duck pond. Judy and Martin's mother were going for a walk. They were going for a walk to the pond. They were going to see the ducks. Up the hill they went. Step, step, step. Down the hill they went. Run, run, run. Over the wall they went. Climb, climb, climb. We are almost there, said Martin. Soon we shall see the pond. We are almost there, said Judy. Soon we shall hear the ducks. Yes, said Martin's mother. We are almost there. We will go up the path between the trees. We will go down the path beyond the trees. Then we will look for the pond. Judy and Martin's mother walked on and on. They went up the path between the trees. They went down the path beyond the trees. They looked for the pond. They looked for the ducks. Judy and Martin's mother looked and looked again. They did not see any pond at they did not see any ducks. They saw just one big puddle of mud. "What has happened to the pond?" asked Martin. "What has happened to the ducks?" asked Judy. Judy and Martin's mother looked and looked again. "I did not think," said Martin's mother, "that the pond would be so dry. We have had many days of hot sunshine. We have had no rain. That is why the pond has grown smaller and smaller." "But where are the ducks?" asked Martin. "They have flown away for another pond," said Martin's mother. "Will they come back?" asked Judy. "We must wait and see. We must wait until it rains." "Do you think it will rain today?" asked Martin. Martin's mother looked up at the sky. She saw that it was blue and bright. She saw no clouds at all. "No," said Martin's mother, "I don't think it will rain today." Judy and Martin's mother turned around to go home. They went up the path that led to the trees. They went down the path between the trees. Judy and Martin were wondering where the pond had gone. Judy and Martin were wondering where the ducks had flown. They were wishing that it would rain. Over the wall they went. Climb, climb, climb. "Couldn't we make it rain?" asked Judy. "No," said Martin's mother. "We could not make it rain." Up the hill they went. Step, step, step. "Couldn't Daddy make it rain?" asked Judy. "No," said Martin's mother. "Daddies cannot make it rain." "Can policemen make it rain?" asked Judy. "Can firemen make it rain?" "No," said Martin's mother. "No person can make it rain." Down the hill they went. Run, run, run. "Why can't we make it rain?" asked Martin. "Because we cannot make the clouds come. Because we cannot make the winds blow." "When will it rain?" asked Judy. "When the wind blow the clouds over our heads. When the clouds spread out over the sky. Then it will rain. But I don't know when that will be." Judy and Martin's mother were coming near the two little white houses where they lived. Martin's mother went into the house. Martin and Judy walked up and down the yard. They looked up at the sky. They wished it would rain and fill the pond. They wished it would rain and the ducks would come back. Judy and Martin looked up at the sky again. They saw it was bright and blue. They saw no clouds at all. Judy and Martin knew that it would not rain that day.
Thank you, Amanda. Amanda actually owns a preschool in Encinitas, so this work on children's spirituality is right up her alley. The reading is from Nita Penfold and is called The First Day of School. No matter what they tell you, let it be about joy. Let it be about the sacred self-surviving. No, thriving, shining its way to the knowledge within. Let it be about blooming, the unfolding of the universe through you, because the story of you begins 15 billion years ago with that first flash of being. At 4, you reached out your hand into the dark night and pulled back in wonder, a firefly blinking from your finger. Keep that magic that both you and the firefly are one. Everything connected, everything possible, made of stardust and moonshine, as we all are. Let it always be about your shining. Although we are not physically together, it is tremendously important that we continue to give our fellowship our financial support. The fellowship has committed to pay the staff through this period of uncertainty. And the fellowship is not like other nonprofits, which receive funds from a number of sources. We are its only support. You can find the different options for payment on the website. One of my professors, Dr. Yuri Bronfenbrenner at Cornell, taught the huge introductory child development class to undergraduates each year. And on the very last day of class, he always said to them, as you leave here, find the institutions that you love and support them with your time and money, because they are the backbone of our society. I invite you to participate in this offering in the spirit of generosity, giving an amount that fills you with happiness with sharing what you can.
And now for our spoken and silent meditation. Please join me in hearing this story of Humming to Snails by Marjorie Squire, which will be followed by a time of quiet meditation and reflection. On a lazy Sunday afternoon last June, I sat with my 10-year-old cousin on the rocky shore of the Demarascot River in Maine. I watched as he patiently held a snail that he had plucked from the rocks and hummed to it. I didn't know whom to watch, the boy or the snail, but soon I saw 2 antennae appear from the shell, and the snail began to dance. Of course I had to try it. It wasn't long before all the other adults had moved from the porch down to the rocks, each one holding a snail and humming to it. A dance troupe of snails. 2 things struck me about this experience. One was the quiet power of that youngster in teaching us something about our world. He didn't tell us anything, but allowed us to discover it for ourselves. We forgot our adult anxieties about looking silly and abandoned ourselves to humming. The other was in the form of a theological question. Is there something out there in the universe humming for us to come out of our shells, urging us to dance? Trying to understand what moves us is one of the reasons we come together in a religious community. Let us now continue in silence in the spirit of prayer and meditation.
As a child psychologist, I have always been interested in development, from birth through adulthood, but mostly the development of children. In all my years of predoctoral, doctoral, and postdoctoral training, I learned about many aspects of child development: social development, cognitive development, language development, and motor development. But I never heard one word about spiritual development. Perhaps the study of moral development is what comes closest to the study of the spiritual. So when a colleague mentioned a book by Tobin Hart called The Secret Spiritual World of Children, I was intrigued. And when Dr. Hart proposed that children had spiritual capacities that adults do not notice or acknowledge, I stopped short. Wasn't that exactly what my education showed? I had observed, discussed, read about, done research on, played with, taught, and parented children, and I never formally, or maybe even informally, looked at their spiritual development. My husband Paul and I were raised in different religious traditions. He is Jewish, and I was christened Catholic, confirmed Episcopalian, and dropped in and out of the Unitarian Church from high school, when it was just the Unitarian Church, until I started coming regularly in 2001, when it was the Unitarian Universalist Church. Paul and I talked about religious training, talked about what religious training our children should have, but we never really talked about their spiritual development. In fact, we never really resolved the question of which church or synagogue. So our two children got a smattering of the different traditions. In fact, Amanda has said to us that the one real failing we had as parents was not giving them a religious foundation. I began to think about what I've been missing and not seeing in my education and experience with children. I began to learn that children are spiritual beings and have capacities from birth that lay the foundation for spiritual growth and development. I want to share some of what I've learned with you because our awareness of children's spiritual capacities is important for them as well as for us. Tuning into spirituality is transformational. It unleashes the possibilities of spirit in all of us. As I read about children's spirituality and asked those I knew about their experience or those of their children, I heard many stories. Susan, my friend and the mother of a 19-month-old, told me how amazed she was at her son's intuitive wisdom after she lost her temper and yelled at him one day. She immediately regained her composure and told him she was sorry. She said, "Tommy, I'm sad I yelled at you." Tommy replied, "Me sad too." Susan said, "No, Tommy, you don't have to be sad. It was Mommy's fault." Tommy replied, "Mommy sad and me sad too." My friend Sandy, who had polio as a child, told me that she was in a lot of pain and frightened the night she spent in the hospital, the night before she had surgery on her legs. She said her grandmother came to her and said, "You'll be okay, Sandy. You are much more than your physical body." When she told her mother the next day about her grandmother's visit, her mother said she hadn't seen her. Although Sandy's grandmother was alive and had been at the hospital, she was not sure whether she had actually visited that night. Yet Sandy said her grandmother's words comforted her through many successive surgeries during her childhood and even as an adult. My friend John, who is now 75, told me, "I grew up in a house which, when I was young, was well outside Charlotte's city limits. There was a big swath of grass behind our house with a tall pear tree. I can remember lying on the grass near the tree in the late evening on a summer night, when the stars were just appearing, looking up at the sky and wondering, what would it be like if there was nothing at all? I would concentrate on this thought, asking it over and over, and it would put me in a kind of trance. I remember feeling lightheaded, as if I was floating. I was both exhilarated and a little frightened, and did not tell my parents, thinking they might disapprove. I think this happened a half a dozen times, for just a few minutes each time. I can't remember how old I was, but probably about 6 or 7. In her book, My Dream of Stars, Anushi Ansari, an Iranian-American astronaut, wrote, "One of the really sweet things my Baba and Mama did for me when we moved to Tehran was to let me sleep on their balcony, where jasmine, orange, and lemon trees grew in large pots. During the summer, it was a fragrant, cool escape from the noisy city. Baba fitted a net over my little fold-out cot to protect me from mosquitoes, but I always pushed it back because I wanted to see the stars. When they came out, twinkling, I would lie on my cot and let my mind wander, pretending I was up in space. It made me wonder where we come from. The night sky was not only a playground for my mind, it was also a refuge where I could hide amongst the stars, away from the sadness in my life." A final example of the spiritual experiences of children comes from the book, The Secret Spiritual World of Children, which I mentioned before, where the author, Dr. Hart, described his encounter with his 9-year-old daughter, Haley, and Mahalia Jackson. Haley had always told her parents about having a guardian angel. The parents typically just listened and possibly asked a question or two when she mentioned it, trying to be accepting and not make a big deal of it. Dr. Hart said that late one Sunday afternoon, Haley, who is not much of a typist, was slowly and painfully trying to finish a report on the great gospel singer, Mahalia Jackson, which she had been working on for about 2 weeks. She'd read a book and downloaded some one-page articles about the singer's life. The author continued, "As I walked into the room where she was working, it was easy to feel the tension as she was reaching the point that the goal was simply to finish, which it was due the next morning in her 4th grade class. Frustration was setting in, and she was still in need of a conclusion and desperately in need of a shift in mood. While she was walking out of the room to take a break, I spontaneously asked her if she wanted to try an experiment," said Dr. Hart. "I suggested she lie in her bed and ask her angel if she knew anything about Mahalia Jackson. I'd never suggested anything even remotely like this before, and I'm not sure where the suggestion came from." Haley, more than ready for any distraction from her typing, agreed. 15 or 20 minutes later, she hopped downstairs and her father asked her how she was doing. "Good," she said. "I just saw Mahalia. I was kind of surprised that I actually saw her and how easy it was to find her," she announced. She started to tell her father what Mahalia had said to her about a wide range of very subtle and personal things. After nearly 10 minutes of relaying this material, Haley said that Mahalia wanted to tell her a main thing about her life. Mahalia said that her life was filled with 3 things: joy, happiness, and fear. She felt joy that Black people and white people were giving her a lot of attention. She felt happy that she was able to do just what she wanted to do, sing her music and sing about love and God. She also said that she was afraid because she was getting so popular in helping Black and white people come together that some people would not like it and might try to hurt her. Haley's father said that although these specific ideas were not at all explicit in the materials her daughter had read, because he had checked, Haley had captured Mahalia Jackson's life with riveting clarity and directness. Haley suddenly had a new sense of intimacy and excitement for this woman and for her research project. When Dr. Hart asked his daughter how she'd gotten in touch with Mahalia, she said, "It was easy. I just relaxed on the bed and asked my angel for help. Then in my mind, I went to www.mahaliajackson.com, and there she was, standing right in front of me. We talked, and she told me about her life." As these examples suggest, children have spiritual capacities and experiences, profound moments that sometimes shape their lives in enduring ways, like Sandy's connection to her grandmother's wisdom about the effects of her surgery. To summarize these capacities, one might include the sense of awe and wondering about the world and one's place in it, the abilities to form connections with people, ideas, the natural and spiritual world, an inner knowing or wisdom, and sensing something we cannot see or hear. Some of these are present soon after birth or clearly in infancy. Human infants are born into relationship. They cannot grow, develop, or even survive without an emotional attachment to at least one other human being. Children's brains grow in relationship. It takes two brains to grow a brain. By about a year of age, babies will try to soothe others in distress by stroking and touching them or offering a toy or bottle. Empathy can be seen as a spiritual experience because it awakens our inner connection, our compassion, and our love. As these capacities develop over time, with ever-widening human encounters and relationships, and deepening human understanding, our children's spirituality grows. Their early attachments become the foundation of their love for others, the world, and for some, their God. Then later as adolescents, teenagers search for a sense of self and personal identity. They explore and reassess their early experiences to arrive at a beginning sense of their own personal values, beliefs, and goals. Their childhood experiences with spirituality will be integrated into more coherent systems. In my training and experience with children, I think I was aware of many of these childhood characteristics. I saw that children express pure delight in seeing something new. I knew children could stop what they were doing to watch and appreciate some wonder of nature, from an ant dragging a large crumb across the sidewalk to a snail's dancing. I understood the importance of relationship and how children can spontaneously show love to others through a glowing smile or spontaneous hug. I listened when children told me what they were thinking and showed respect and acceptance for their worries and questions. I've always taken them seriously as they shared a concern or wondered about ghosts or monsters. I learned to hear their stories and ask questions in a way that would help them go more deeply. However, I'm not sure I I really heard children's stories of sensing something that we cannot see. I may have attributed these experiences, if I heard them at all, to imagination. Surprisingly, I could hear these stories in adults, especially as they told of contacts with a loved one after he or she had died. A woman told me of her mother having loved frogs. A few days after her mother died, a frog, for the first time ever, jumped into her house. She knew it was her mother's spirit telling her that she was okay. This I could understand as a spiritual experience. I'm not sure how I would have heard it from a child. I'm not sure a child would have told me this in the first place, because he or she may not have expected to be heard. I think I am more attuned now, and will hear more of what children see that is beyond the eye, and even more, be willing to ask them. Soon after thinking about this reflection, I asked a 17-year-old who was still grieving the death of her grandfather if she ever felt she had contact with him. She said no, but after a moment she continued. But we have from my other grandfather who committed suicide. He and my brother used to call each other Biff and Bob. Nobody else ever called them those names. Then, when our sister had a baby after my grandfather died, the baby started calling my brother Bob when he started talking. She said it was as if her grandfather's spirit had somehow connected to her new baby. Aside from tuning into children's sensing what can't be seen, I noticed many of these individual capacities in children. Wonder and awe, wondering, appreciating mystery, wisdom, and relating to others. Yet I probably did not give them due weight. I certainly did not identify them as spiritual capacities or realize how they fit together to reflect and facilitate spiritual growth and development. Seeing these as part of spiritual development is an important change. What is spiritual is sacred. It's at the core of our being. As adults, our developmental task is nurturing and supporting the next generations, our children and grandchildren. As we acknowledge and nourish these capacities as spiritual, we're helping children be comfortable with these aspects of who they are, to trust their own experience and inner wisdom. At the same time, we are reinforcing ourselves as spiritual beings. In conclusion, the religious education program of the Unitarian Church was talking about the spiritual education of young children back in the 1940s. Through their Martin and Judy stories, like Off to the Duck Pond, read earlier, the editor stated that, quote, the choice of episodes had been made on the basis of a philosophy that a natural spiritual development is possible and desirable for little children. It is our belief that beginning with the common experiences of every day is the more natural way to lead a child religiously. We recorded the kinds of experience that actually awakened wonder, that represented the thrill of a first discovery, that caused questioning, the beginnings of philosophizing, and the opening of the spirit to joy and warmth of affection. With the child's spontaneous emotional response to these new discoveries is planted something like a germ cell from which spiritual insights may grow. End quote. If I had been trained in the Unitarian Church instead of the university, maybe I would have recognized spiritual development a lot earlier. So may it be.
And now for our closing words. Be guided by children's questions, for they will teach you, and they will not be content with half-truths. It is true and cannot answer them all. For children ask questions which nobody can answer.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.